Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. Now, before I start this video, one of the things I want to mention is that there's going to be a new live stream on February 26, 2024, exclusively for YouTube channel members. And the topic is going to be about newbie success. So if you ever have been afraid to start something new just because you feel like you have to be an expert to do it, whether it's real estate or velocity banking, I'm going to give you some tips and perspectives that might help you succeed that certainly have helped me. Again, it's going to be this next Monday, February 26th, 6 p.m. Eastern, only for YouTube channel members. So if you want to be a YouTube channel member, go ahead and click this join button. It's only 99 cents. You get this loyalty badge and custom emojis. So all members have access to the exclusive live streams and the recordings. We do it once a month just for fun and talk about topics that are a little bit deeper than what we talk about in the main YouTube videos on the channel. Okay. All right. So let's go to today's topic of the day, which is what if I don't have a personal or home equity line of credit? Can we do velocity banking? Absolutely. But it's better to have all the tools available at your disposal in the beginning. And there's a saying that banks don't lend money to those who need it, right? And so we want to be cognizant, just as a general life philosophy, that in order for us to go out there and be successful in the world, that we don't react to our situation, we plan and we prepare, right? So, right, one of the reasons that I have $258,000 in lines of credit is because I understood from our education that we share that we only get credit when we don't need it, right? Banks don't lend money to people who need it. And so a lot of you might be in a pickle. It's like, well, I would love a home equity line of credit now, or I would love a personal line of credit now because I'm maxed out on credit cards, right? And sad to say, um, that's just not how lending works, right? And here's the other thing too. If banks actually started lending money to people who needed it, they would go broke. And I think an example of this is like the Apple Card, where two players who don't have experience in the financial lending space um, uh, are we're in a bad deal. So, for example, Goldman Sachs and Apple they partnered together to provide the Apple Card, and Goldman Sachs doesn't do consumer lending, or they weren't known to do that, and so they would do things that Apple wanted, and Apple's not a traditional lender. And now they're wondering why they're losing so much money, right? So, in order to understand finance, look at it from the lender's perspective. Don't look at it from your own perspective, because there's always emotion tied to that, right? Whereas from the lender's perspective, it's all about the numbers and just making a profit off of interest or your lending portfolio. Okay, so now let's go and look at this situation where we have an average American trying to pay off our debt. We have plenty, good amount of savings, and it's kind of like, what do we do with the savings? Do we put it on top of extra one debt, or credit card one, credit card two, or maybe these student loans? Don't worry about these figures because this will be for later. But we have in total $74,000 in debt. Now, in this example, we're not going to have access to a personal home equity line of credit. Now, I'm sorry, my suggestion might be, if we pay off these two credit cards, then apply for a personal line of credit, because again, it's so much better when you have all the tools available. It's kind of like saying, hey, if you may have a hammer, and you're trying to do stuff with a hammer that a saw would normally do better, right? I don't know if that's a good analogy, but you want all the tools and use the appropriate tool at the right time, is what I'm saying. But if you can't do it, you can, if you don't have access to a personal line of credit, if you paid off these two credit cards, that might be the perfect time, because again, at that point, you don't need a personal line of credit, and that's the best time to get it because banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? So something to consider. Okay, so we have our budget, so let's just do a few modifications. So I've kind of adjusted how things are done if you're only using a credit card. But let's just assume that we're going to use this credit card, right? That has a $15,000 balance as our main line of credit. Okay, so it's maybe we'll have a $20,000 limit, $15,000 balance. And what happens? So let's just do this. When we use any line of credit as our main operating account, Well, we're dumping our entire paycheck in it, or as much as possible in this case. So this is going to be zero, right? So this is going to really help with our cash flow. Now, the disadvantage of the credit card is that I can't use credit card one to pay credit card two, and I can't use a student loan. I'm sorry, a credit card to pay a student loan or auto loan unless I'm using Plastique. Now, I'm good. There's going to be a point in this video where we're going to say, hey, we probably need to either get a personal line of credit or use Plastique, which I will get into. Okay, so now we can't pay this with let's say with I'm sorry, we can't use this to pay the credit card or the loans, and maybe we're a little bit afraid to use Plastique, and we don't have a personal line of credit. So let's just say for this phase, okay, we're gonna dump some of our money into our savings, so about this much, because this we have to pay this directly in cash. Okay, so we're gonna have savings for expenses that can't be paid with the line of credit. So I'm gonna go ahead and sum this up. So that's gonna be C9 to C12, right? So I'm sorry, is it C9 to C? Yes. Wait a minute, something seems off. C12 to C. No, I screwed up. C9 to C 12. Okay. So we need to save every month $1,200 to pay to our other debts that can't be paid with a credit card, right? And so what we're going to do to figure out how much we put into that line of credit, right? What we're going to do is take our normal paycheck minus the savings we have to take out for expenses that can't be paid out with the line of credit. So this gets a little bit convoluted, but in this case, it'll be 5,000 minus C4. Okay. And so we're going to set aside this much. We're going to put this much into our line of credit, and our expenses from our line of credit is just going to be these two. We're going to assume we can pay rent with our credit card, so it's going to be 2,500. Okay, so 2,500 is going to be our expenses for our line of credit, and then our line of credit cash flow is just C2 minus C3, right? And so now what we're going to do is we're going to after every month our cash flow is going to be about 1,200, so we just need to calculate that. So we're going to do some formulas that I always do after in pretty much every video. But in order to get the next month's balance, it's the previous month's balance plus the previous month's interest minus our cash flow 1253.32. And what we're going to do is instead of putting our entire paycheck, we're going to put the 3,700 in here and then take out the 2,500 in expenses. Okay. And then our interest, right? So our interest is going to be the average. Oopsie, it shouldn't be the sum. It should be the average of these two uh, times zero point 0.3, which is the interest rate, and then divide by 12. Okay. And then now what we're going to do is just copy and paste these formulas until we see that it's all paid off. And then we see that in month 15, right? So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this. It's pretty much paid off, month 15. Okay. So now what we're going to do is just write a milestone and say it took 15 months to pay off 15K of debt, right? So this first credit card. And now we're going to pivot, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to pivot and we're going to make this our main velocity banking account. And whatever we make as our main velocity banking account, this goes to zero. Bam, right? So now our new cash flow is going to be 1786.65. Okay. So, but the thing is, after 15 months, um, two things are going to happen. This payment is actually going to go lower after every month because of how credit card payments are usually calculated. So, but just to make this easy, we'll just assume it's 533. But the other thing too is after 16 months, this is actually going to go down a certain amount. So let's just kind of figure out what that is. So 16, I actually pre-did this. So $16,000, 28% interest rate. You look at bank rate minimum payment calculator, and I think after 15 months, because that was our first payoff, the balance is actually going to be 13,000, right? And so now what we do is that we make this our main line of credit. This goes to zero, bam, right? So now we're kind of switching gears, and our interest rate is actually 28%. And so what we're going to do is just change this to 28% for our new line of credit, and we just have to make a quick adjustment, okay, right? So we have to make an adjustment to two things. We'll say that this is 28%, so 0.28 is the new interest. I don't know if this is going to make that big of a difference, right? And then for here, our new cash flow is going to be 17786.65, right? So now we go ahead and do that and figure out how long it's going to take us to pay this off, right? So now with our new cash flow, it's going to take us about 23 months to pay this off, okay? So now it's 23 months to pay off, I think 31,000. So, whoopsie. So it's going to be 15,000 plus 16,000. So this is going to be paid off. And then now at 23 months, we have to figure out, what the balances of these loans are. Luckily, I've kind of pre-did them for you, but I punched it in the amortization calculators, and you could kind of do this yourself. I'm going to skip over this for now. But at 23 months, these are what the balances of the loans would be: student loan, auto loan. Now, at this point, you have two choices, right? We paid off these two credit cards, and we can decide, okay, are we going to apply for a personal line of credit? Because we paid it off, so we don't need money, and therefore banks will lend us money, right? We get a personal line of credit, or we can use Plastique. Both are valid, but I personally would go with the personal line of credit just because it's easier to use. But here's the thing: if you use Plastique, you get like free bonus points. If your credit card has credit card rewards, that might be a good way to snag free rewards. I mean, this guy used Plastique to buy a $60,000 Tesla to get $5,000 of free travel rewards and stuff, right? And so again, if you know how to work the system, then go for it, as long as it's legal and ethical. And it says right here, use Plastique or Plastic with the Q, which charges a 2.5% fee. Again, there is a charge for a fee, but if you can offset it with your rewards or whatever, then you might be either in a wash or a win, right? So so at this point, whether you use Plastique or whether you use a personal line of credit, there wouldn't really be that much of a difference in terms of, let's say, like, I think the payoff speed, but there definitely might be a difference in terms of like the interest paid. So maybe if you do Plastique wrong and use the wrong credit card, you might actually pay a little bit more interest. And actually, let me do this. So because we have these two credit cards paid off, what would be your let's say, decision to take? Would you apply for a personal line of credit, or would you just use Plastic because you already have the credit card and you want to use that as your main velocity banking tool? Or what you can do is just say, you know what, I'm not using credit cards anymore. I'm going to put my entire savings into these student loans and pay them off directly with cash. Now, you know how I kind of feel about that is that when you put your money, cash savings, directly into a loan, you don't ever get it back. And then if you use your credit card and backup, that's going to lead to something called segregation of income, which is the reason why six-figure people are broke. If you have no idea what segregation of income is, go ahead and look that up in our YouTube channel, and you'll see a better explanation of what I mean. But let's just assume here, okay, so now we paid off these two credit cards. Okay, we're good. So now we can dump our entire paycheck if we're going to use Plastique, or get a personal line of credit, right? So it depends on whatever we want to do. But let's just assume that, yeah, we are going to use Plastique, right? So we can dump our entire paycheck into one credit card. Okay, so that's $5,000. Um, Again, our general, so let me just do this. So this is going to be now 0 because I'm going to pay for everything in what's it called? So let's see what our line of credit expenses would be now. We'll just include the whole shebang. So it's going to be 10 to 14. So it's going to be the whole thing. So again, this is kind of like you're doing your traditional velocity banking at this point. So this will be C8 to C14. Okay. And so now our cash flow is 1786.65, which is, I think, what we're doing, right? So this makes sense. Okay. So now at this point, we got to figure out which of these three are we going to pay off first, or what we're going to focus paying off, because usually in velocity banking, we're paying off debts one at a time. And there's two sets of debt payoff criteria. So out of these two student loans and one auto debt, And after 23 months, these are actually the balances. I've kind of pre-done them for you. You got to figure out, okay, well, you can use this method to figure out which debt to pay off, the lowest balance, highest interest rate, and highest payment, or you can use a formula called cash flow index, which completely ignores the interest rate. So if you want to know what the cash flow index is, all you do is just take the statement balance, so 16828.78 divided by the payment, 207.28, right? And I'm going to do that for this one, which is 8448.92 divided by 106.07. And then here it's going to be 5024.83 divided by 400. Basically what the cash flow index model says is that you want to pay off the one with the lowest number. And what this means is that, okay, would you pay $5,000 to get $400 back, or would you pay $16,000 to only get $200 back, right? I want to pay the $5,000 to get the $400 back. That's really what it means in a nutshell. You could look it up, cash flow index, Garrett Gunderson. Or if you use the traditional model, you can still pay it off. So lowest balance, highest interest rate, highest payment. You look for loans or debts that fill in these criteria as much as possible. And this is the lowest balance, highest payment, highest interest rate. So it's a no-brainer. So it fits both models, both cash flow index and the traditional debt payoff criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to pay this sucker off, right? And then this is going to go to 0. So let's go ahead and do that. And at this stage, we're going to do plus, okay? And now what's our cash flow? Okay, so our cash flow at this point is going to be 2186.65. Again, we're using our credit card. We're just 28%. We're just going to assume with Plastique, we're going to incur, the fees are going to be a wash because even though Plastique has like a 2 point something percent fee, we have maybe like a 3% credit card rewards or something like that, right? Or maybe we're getting this amazing travel rewards or something like that, right? All right, so now let's go ahead and put our new cash flow in. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. And so for this one, it's going to be minus 2186.65. Okay, and now we're gonna go back and uh, pay off our other debts, and then if it only takes 2 months, right, to pay off these debts, I think it's going to be like a very similar balance. So just to make the calculation easy, we're going to keep it for now. If we look at the cash flow index model, I think this one was slightly lower. And at this point, we have to decide, do we want to use velocity banking? We can do it. We don't have to. Again, at this point, I think the main benefit would be that segregation of income. But let's go ahead and just use our velocity banking cheat sheet, right, from Renatus, because I'm a Renatus student. It's where I originally learned it from, and I actually am what they call an independent contractor marketer. So I make money from sharing the education that I think has helped me a lot. So now go ahead and let's go ahead and do this. So what's the original balance? Let's say we'll tackle on student loan two. So it's gonna be 10,000, right? So 10,000, and then 8448.92 is the current balance, 8448.92, and the interest rate is 5, and the payment amount is 106.07. Okay, and again, so this is going to be a 28% credit card. Now, what's our income? Is going to be $5,000, and the expenses are everything except for this payment, right? So it's going to be 2,500 plus this one, so it'll be 2707.28. So 2707.28, right? And so now we have to put what we call the chunk amount. If I just do let's say my paycheck, it should be sufficient. And we pay it off in point 0.3. So even though this is a 28% interest rate, because again, it's cash flow that matters, not the interest rate, we only pay, we paid this off in point 0.3 months or point 0.3 years, and we pay it off in $178 of interest. So again, I would prefer the personal line of credit because it's easier, it's lower interest rate. You can pay anything. I don't have to use Plastique, but hey, credit cards still work. So let's go ahead and do that. And then so now what's point 0.3 months? So what's point 0.3? Um, yeah, actually 0.3 times 12 should give us the number of months. So it's 3.6 months, right? So we'll just say, I'll say 26 months. Okay. So 26 months. And we paid off 41K. Okay. Now, again, just because I'm too lazy to look up the balance after 26 months, I'm just going to assume that this is the same, even though that's not technically true. But again, we're going to overestimate this by a little bit. So let's go ahead and write this down. So it'll be $20,000 original balance. Um, this is going to be our current balance. It's going to be 4.5. And what is our payment amount? Our payment amount is 207.28. So let's go ahead and do that. 207.28. Now, what we're going to do, again, so we're going to modify our expenses just because now this is going to be 0, right? So now our expenses are around 2,500 because we don't include the thing that we're paying off in our calculator. So it's going to be 2,500. All right. So now let's just do a $5,000 chunk. So it's going to be zero point 0.6, right? Now, let's say we put this whole thing into the credit card. Again, if the credit card rewards kind of offset whatever it is you're doing, it might be worth it, but I can't calculate that accurately here. 828.7, oopsie, that's not the percent. 16828.78. And you can see that the interest doubles, right? So that's why doing it in little spurts or chunking is a lot more resilient to the interest rate than putting the whole thing into line of credit. So if the interest rate of your line of credit is definitely lower than the loan you're paying off, definitely put the entire thing in there. But if it's higher, and 99% of the time it probably will be higher, you definitely don't want to put the entire thing in a line of credit. All right, so now this is zero point 0.6, so zero point 0.6 years. And so what's zero point 0.6 into, actually, you know what? I screwed up. All right, so I'm sorry, my bad. 26 months. So 26 months is going to be, um, so 31 plus 13. I forgot to say that the auto loan was paid off. So that's going to be 44K, okay? And then we paid this off in zero point 0.3, so we'll just say 29 months, okay? 29 months, and oh, not this one. Oh, I'm screwing up so bad. All right, so 29 months, and this will be another 10K, which is going to be 54K, right? And then now our last one, right? Our last one, it took us zero point 0.6 months. So how much is zero point 0.6? Equals zero point 0.6 times 12. Is it 7 point? Oh, 7.2 months. So 7.2 months. So now that's going to be 36. We'll say 36 months. So 36 months and 74K. Let's highlight that. Ta-da! We did 74K in about 3 years. Wow, fantastic. And we didn't have to have a personal line of credit, and we're good. And the world is saved, I think. But again, if you I'm gonna say this, it's much easier to have all the tools available at your disposal because there's that saying that what is it, like, for every, you don't want to be the person where if you have a hammer everything's a nail, right? Like, you want to use the appropriate tool at the right time. And so here in this case, it would be fantastic if I had both credit cards and a personal home equity line of credit, but we'll just assume that we're only using credit cards, okay? But if you can, like I said before, once these are paid off or one of these are paid off, apply for a personal line of credit. Then problem solved, right? All right. Well, this is Korean Atlanta Mentorship. Don't forget, Monday, there's a live stream, 6 p.m. If you want to join, go ahead and click join right here to be part of the live stream, 99 cents a month. You get these emoji badges and access to any live stream event or previous live streams. All right. Well, have a great day, everybody. We will speak next time.